LGBTQ in whole. There's been a lot of slurs back at us.
They also invited us to come in, but without cameras and only two of us, which is obviously not safe for us.
Although I'm not very trusting of it, walking into a room full of people that I have seen online spew hate is not super comfortable to me.
So only your rules then is what you're saying?
In this space.
Yep. In this space. I thought
And they behave as though there's a majority view, which is in fact not the majority view. It's in fact the minority view. It's just a very loud minority.
I was that kid that could have used soji in school.
These predators that are doing these things are making people hate their community when that should not be a thing.
An event hosted by Canadian journalist Megan Murphy that was speaking out about parental rights and women's rights, to no surprise, attracted a group of rainbow-cloaked LGBTQ sex activists who protested the event because they consider it to have been hateful. Rebel News was on the scene in Vancouver Island the moment some of those protesters and the event speakers came face to face and something shocking occurred. Watch this report in full so you get to see it with your own eyes. Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, where we're not afraid to bring you the other side of the story, to the politically driven narrative that is, if one does not affirm all things labeled as a trans right, that automatically makes them some sort of hateful bigot. That's why when we learned about an event that would be hosted by Canadian journalist and women's rights activist Megan Murphy called Vancouver Island Speaks Out, we knew we'd better be there to cover it for you and be your eyes and ears. Murphy, alongside activist and researcher Bryony Dixon and Janaea Wright, a mother who caught a male dressed like a woman peeping under her daughter's change room stall in the Nanaimo Aquatic Center earlier this year, sat on a panel at the event for the discussion about gender identity ideology, women's spaces, and parental rights. The conversation was emceed by former Chilliwack and Hope MLA Gwen Mahoney, and all tickets for the event ended up selling out. Despite such public interest, the original venue for the event canceled on the woman-led talk after pushback from cancel culture mobsters who also deemed the talk as hateful. At the stroke of midnight, the good folks who volunteer their time to manage Ladysmith, BC Saltaire Community Centre allowed the event to relocate to their hall. So on Sunday, I hopped on a ferry, which, by the way, costs way too much these days, and checked into a modest hotel and then met up with two bodyguards who were by my side the entire time I brought you the coverage from this event. So if you appreciate that Rebel News goes to far lengths to bring you reports like the one you're watching, consider helping us right now recoup some of those costs. You can grab another device or open up another tab and go to our special website called journalistdefensefund.com. That's where you can chip in to help us cover the security costs that we incurred for this event and also to keep rebels safe in the future.
I'm a female. I have a vagina. I'm going to sit on a toilet. Who cares if I have short hair? Who cares if I sleep with women or love women or marry women? I'm marrying one. Who cares? It's none of your business what I do, how I live. I'm not hurting you. I'm not grooming your kids. I'm giving my kids a safe space to be who they are. And you are trying to stop that. So I and we are trying to stop them. You can't shut us up.
I think it's really important to support children's rights. Children have rights just like their parents.
All right. And your sign says inclusion is protection.
Correct.
Okay. So inclusion of who?
I didn't make the sign.
Okay.
I accumulated it.
All right. And so what do you think about this event isn't considering the kids properly?
Because they're pushing their own agenda.
Who's pushing it?
The anti-soji.
Okay. And what about soji is not for the children if you're against it?
I don't have any comments on that.
I was that kid that could have used soji in school. I was that kid that tried to kill myself a bunch of times because I was surrounded by this.
By what? What is that?
By what's going on in there, the hate rhetoric. I know I'm being sucked in, you guys. I'm sorry.
But this isn't a trap.
This anti-soji bullshit. They haven't, every time we try to offer an explanation and a description of the actual curriculum, like grade by grade, nope, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that bullshit. We listened to theirs. We tried to come in and they sent us elsewhere. Like we had people wanting to hear the other side and they literally lied and said, go here, this is where it's happening. but we're too smart.
But I can tell you, I've covered
I can actually
Soji.
look it up myself.
Are you aware of them?
I think we should stop.
Yeah.
Just clarify one
You don't want me to show, but I know what Soji 123 is. But when I told you one of the main concerns these parents have, you're saying you don't want to see the evidence of those books being in BC schools or across the Canada.
She said that she would give you her information
Sorry.
privately.
Your fiance said, I think you should stop here. And you,
I think she should stop talking to you. Can you tell us about your shirt?
my shirt is that you can assume my gender. That's what I prefer you to do. Is that okay?
I just want to know what your take is on it.
It means you can just assume whatever you want to call me is fine. Totally fine. Yeah. And you can buy it at rebelnewsstore.com. Let's take a look at some of what happened inside and outside of the event, starting with protesters who are champions for the controversial Soji 123, a sexual orientation and gender identity curriculum that many parents are concerned about because, among other things, it's paved the way for books with sexually explicit images like the ones you're seeing on the screen being normalized in schools across Western Canada. And you're going to see the moment when, for once, when an olive branch was extended to the trans rights activists, they actually took the organizers up on that offer. Take a look.
We don't want the hate.
And what is the hate at this event?
The speech that they're about to have in there is all hate.
Give me an example of how you know that.
I'm not going to give you an example of that.
They also invited us to come in, but without cameras and only two of us, which is obviously not safe for us. And at that time, they did say it was not a paid event, that it has been canceled, but they are checking tickets at the doors.
Okay. Trish can stay here if she wants. Yeah, Trish can stay if she wants. She's being peaceful protesting. We're conversing.
Okay. Can you let the cop know that? Because they said maybe.
Yeah.
Cool.
Show me which one.
So were you expecting that it's okay for you to be here, or
It's all right.
it's all right? Yeah. Or did you think it would be more hateful, like, get out of here, Trish?
No,
No.
don't expect that at all.
How long is your event going to?
It's going till 9, so it should be starting any minute. We just need it clear here so people can come through. If the protesters can stay out here, that'd be great. With the exception of Trish and her friends. I talked to them, we invited them in, but yeah, she's cool over there.
Are they in the Q&A right now?
We just wanted to know, because this olive branch has been extended, although I'm not very trusting of it, walking into a room full of people that I have seen online spew hate is not super comfortable to me. But is this something that you guys, maybe not you guys, but maybe somebody from your community would be interested in, having a panel where there's both sides to have a conversation?
All right.
We've been trying to do that since 2016, and no one will join the panel. Like, media has tried to host, conversations with me and trans activists. People have tried to set up debates. People have tried to set up panels that shared both sides of the issues, and the other side has always refused. I really appreciate you coming in and speaking to us a lot, because that's, it's not very common that happens. But yeah, I think that,
for me for sure. But
yeah, I think that if the conversation could happen, that would be great. I know Serena would love that also.
And if you don't invite us in to have a conversation, the conversation cannot be had. I understand that you think now allowing a conversation is being radical. It's not. You denied our existence. You've denied our conversation.
We haven't denied anyone's existence, and we did invite you in.
First off,
We invited you in more than once.
First off, you're interrupting me.
Yeah, I do that.
We did actually have a no mask policy in general for everybody.
Everybody, there was a no mask policy for safety
we've obviously
reasons
let that
because we're in
slide.
danger.
So
Good faith.
only your rules then is what you're saying.
In this
In this
case.
case, yep.
In this case. Okay, so I'm gonna close it. I thought this was an open.
a regressive, sexist, nonsense ideology that claims the impossible, that individuals can change sex through self-declaration, that it's possible to be born in the wrong body, that if a girl or a woman sees a man in their change room and that man says he's a woman, he has the right to be there, and the danger is in fact the girl or the woman who feels unsafe. This is what our government is protecting. This is what our unions are protecting. This is what our public institutions are protecting, the right of predatory men to access spaces where girls and women are vulnerable.
I was totally inspired by everyone who came out. It's really hard to come to these events. I wish that it weren't. It seems silly to me that it's so scary and so risky just to come to an event to have a conversation about things that are really important to everyone. You know, women's rights, kids, families, parental rights, reality.
You know, and this is a quietly held opinion, I'd say. As I got older and I realized you had to be more politically correct, especially in arts and culture circles where this is, a lot of people bought into it, hook, line and sinker, I will say.
I'm growing increasingly uncomfortable with the fact that I'm living in a place where you can't talk freely anymore about serious issues, child safeguarding, women safeguarding, and I'd been working at the Fringe and watching how that is not espousing the values that it once had for free expression, and this is one of those subjects, right? So I'd been speaking on it because it's my own sex-based right.
That evening, I escorted her into the change room, and a individual wearing a man wearing a wig and 6'2", something between his legs. It was a man. Came in the change room and loitered around the change room. Didn't have any towel or bag or any indication that he was going to use the pool facility.
You caught a person who identifies as a woman looking underneath the change room. What was going through your mind? Just a quick recap.
I actually don't know. I think that I blanked out and I went into full protection mode of my child in that moment.
And yet there are people who were here today outside who believe it was hateful. One even named you, believes it's hate that you're spreading.
And Drea Wright in there is touting or talking about how there was zero aggression on their side. The aggression and violence was on them.
This has nothing to do with the transgender community for myself. This has to do with a predator that is appropriating transgender identity to gain access to children. And I would love it if the transgender community would stand with us as parents, because it would also protect their name in all this. Because the thing is these predators that are doing these things are making people hate their community when that should not be a thing. That's not something that I personally am trying to represent at all. This is about a predator that looked under the stall at my daughter and the fact that anybody can self-ID.
How is denying the safety of trans women safety for all of humanity?
Great question.
Okay, Thank you.
I don't think anyone is denying the safety of men. I think that what we're talking about is the safety of women and girls and children in particular. And so there are certain spaces that are single-sex spaces for a reason, because women and girls are vulnerable in those spaces. So change rooms, transition houses, shelters, prisons, bathrooms. I'm frustrated that I even have to explain why men aren't allowed in those spaces, but I think
I'm talking about trans women, not men.
Trans women are men. I've never done an event ever addressing the issue of gender identity ideology that hasn't been protested, where there haven't been threats, where we haven't needed security and the cops. It is really dangerous, and I'm scared every time I do these events for good reason. We were attacked, I talked to you about this earlier, in San Francisco. Like, a gang of Antifa men chased us down. It was terrifying.
These people threaten us with real violence and do sometimes perpetrate real violence. We lost our first venue because the business owners were terrified that this would be business suicide, in their words.
I think we talk a lot about safe spaces, and this is one of my big concerns, how words have become deemed by a lot of people to be now harmful or violent or aggressive in some way. And I understand why the people outside have that fear, because I can't blame them having been conditioned to believe that a lot of people hate them, which I don't think is the case. I think algorithms push that messaging. I think the media pushes that messaging. And our institutions do as well. I watched it this week with the 1 million person march. So I understand why they're fearful. And so it is a big deal when they come in and speak to us about it. But then I'm hoping that they feel like they can have a voice, and we also deserve to have a voice.
I've received plenty of hateful messages, people bombarding me online, people saying that I'm some hateful individual, plastering my name, my picture, my business name all over the internet when they don't even know what I'm standing for. I never once have said anything negative about transgender, about their community. This to me, again, was a predator that appropriated the transgender identity to gain access to my child. This was my child this happened to. A pervert looked under the stall at my little girl. Like, if people can't wrap their brains around that, it boggles my mind. My business has actually not suffered because more people are supporting me because I am speaking out on this, and I'm going to continue to speak out on it because I just want safety for children.
Let us know what you think about what you just saw about that open dialogue. You can do that in the comments. And you should also know that since doing those interviews that you saw in this report, Megan Murphy let me know that the new venue for their October 4th event has also canceled on them. You can stay tuned at our website to see where they relocate, because they will not be giving the fight to have such discussions. I'm Drea Humphrey for Rebel News.